There are so many big decisions to make for double game week 20. In this video I'm going to start by breaking down the probability of future double game weeks for game weeks 21 and 22. They're provided by the reliable source of Ben Krellin and they're on the screen right now. I'm also going to discuss whether the triple captainship's worth it or not. I'm going to break down the drawbacks and the benefits. And finally, I'm going to reveal my team with my transfers. I've already made one free transfer this game week. I might even go up to a -8. The deadline is fast approaching, so let's get straight into it. Double game week 21 will probably be announced before the double game week 20 deadline. Just make sure you keep an eye out tonight for an announcement. It would come at around 5 or 6 o'clock probably, and that would only give you half an hour to an hour and a half before the deadline to adapt. If you do manage to adapt, that would give you an advantage over most FPL managers. To be fair, an announcement for double game week 21 wouldn't affect my transfers coming in, but they would affect my transfers going out, and you'll see that later on in the video. The double that's most likely to happen is United against Leeds in game week 22. It's more likely to happen than not, there's a 60% chance. Unfortunately, that won't be announced tonight. It would be announced after the game week 20 deadline, and that's something that I'd really like to know right now, because if United double twice in 3 game weeks, I'm going to want to triple up on them. I am moving on from this graphic now if you want to take a screenshot. I will be referring back to it during the video. Building from the back as usual, despite Ward facing Nottingham Forest, Ederson's got a double game week for the best defence in the league. He faces United away and Spurs at home. They're not the easiest of fixtures, but he gets 2 bites at the cherry which heightens his ceiling. And speaking of heightening his ceiling, people told me that he was only going to have a 6-point ceiling in a single game week. Well, he went and got 8 points last game week with 2 bonus points in there. I'm really happy that I went for him on my wildcard. He's a nailed player in that City team who have a couple of doubles coming up, and I expect him to be the highest scoring keeper in the upcoming double game weeks. In defence is his teammate that's not quite reliable, it's Cancelo. Now my problem with Cancelo is that he used to be nailed and now he's not. There's 4 players for City that you can say are nailed: Ederson, Haaland, De Bruyne and Rodri. Now the thing is, I could sell him for another City defender like Stones or Lewis. Stones has probably picked up an injury by the sounds of it, and as for Lewis, sounds like he's going to share minutes with Cancelo anyway. That would be a waste of 4 points because it would be a hit. Imagine if I sell him and he starts playing regular minutes again, that would be a strong regret. And the thing is, who do I bring in? It's difficult when you're transferring defenders because the ceiling is lower, therefore there's less chance to make up the 4 points back. But to be fair, you'll see soon that there's actually a defender that's not reliable for minutes who I'm considering selling for a double game week defender. But to be fair, the player that I'm considering selling has a single game week, therefore he's got less expected minutes than Cancelo. Next up is Trippier against Fulham at home. At the start of the season you'd say that's a decent fixture, but right now it's not. Fulham's in form, Mitrovic is back. But to be fair, it is Trippier for Newcastle, so he's got to play. And completing the backline is Cucurella against Palace at home. He was dropped in Chelsea's last match, so he's the defender that I'm considering selling, and it would be Luke Shaw to come in and replace him. There is a factor that would prevent this transfer from occurring, and that's if Chelsea get a double game week 21. If you remember, there's a 40% chance of that. The same thing applies to his teammate Mount, who would actually be upgrading to Salah. I know it sounds ridiculous with the price difference, but don't forget I've got 2.9 mil in the bank, and I've just downgraded a player by 2.7 mil as well. There's no point me leaving almost 6 mil lying around in the bank. It's not going to get me any points, so right now I might as well, even if it takes a -4, invest the funds in my team, and I'll probably get those points paid back by the time I would have spent that money anyway. He does have a 40% chance of a double in game week 21, then in game week 22, if it's not a double game week, he is at the top of my captaincy matrix. Whilst he faces Wolves away, Haaland's got Spurs away. Next up is Mount's teammate Sterling, and I've actually already sold him for Rashford, and that's freed up the 2.7 mil. There's 2 players that I really couldn't go without in this double game week. That's Haaland captain, possibly triple captain, we'll discuss that later on in the video, and then there's Rashford as well. Really good value for money, with slightly better fixtures as well. My last 2 midfielders and the first player on my forward line are Martinelli, Saka and Nketiah for the Arsenal triple up. I'm keeping them because they are good value for money, but they've got a difficult fixture this game week against Spurs in the North London derby away. If you look at my bench, I kind of have to start them really. Andres has got a difficult fixture against Newcastle away, Dunk's got a difficult fixture against Liverpool at home, and Patterson's out injured for a while. I have considered selling Patterson, but as my 15th player, the player that's injured, the cheapest player that I've got, it's not really worth the -4. My penultimate player is Mitrovic. It didn't go too well last game week, he got a yellow card in the first game, but I actually gained 8 points off him. I gained 4 points off selling Darwin to him, and then 4 points off captaining him instead of Sterling. I don't know where I'd be without those 8 additional points because he had a really unfortunate game week. Kukure was subbed off just 5 minutes after conceding when he would have had a clean sheet locked in, then he was benched in the second game. Dunk got his clean sheet wiped by Everton in the 92nd minute with a penalty. Cancelo was subbed off at half time. Mount got injured in the first game. Sterling also got injured in the first game in the first 5 minutes, then he didn't feature in the second game. Andreas was subbed off in the 59th minute of the first game, then obviously there was the Mitrovic yellow card to top it off. All of this resulted in a big red arrow from 97k to 207k. Anyway, rant over. The player completing the team is of course Haaland. The question is, do we triple captain him or not? I can actually only think of one drawback, but it is a big one. They are 2 difficult fixtures, and in future we are going to have better doubles, whether it be for Kane, Salah or even Haaland. But in those future doubles, you might want the flexibility to use your bench boost, free hit or wildcard. Another thing to consider is that if you look at Haaland, whether it be the eye test or you look at his stats, he is the most reliable player in the league to use this chip on. He might not even be fit for a future double game week, and don't forget he's got the most creative player in the league behind him, which is De Bruyne, who also might not be fit either. City are currently 5 points behind the current leaders Arsenal, therefore Pep's going to want to play both of these essential players in both of those fixtures. Something else that's appealing is that there's a 5-day gap between the fixtures. This doesn't apply to all the double game weeks. For example, double game week 23 only has a 3-day gap. Players might end up having the minutes managed in future doubles. We've got the Champions League coming back. Then you've got cup matches including replays as well. If we compare the opposition's defence between the double in game week 20 and the double in game week 23, Spurs and United have slightly worse defensive numbers than Arsenal and Villa. Something to strongly worry about is that it could be brought off early against Villa in the first fixture. That's because 3 days later they've got the most difficult game of the season against Arsenal at the Emirates in the title race. Unless City make it to the Champions League final, this is the biggest game of the season and they'll need the best player fit for that one. As for Kane, he's got his double this game week against Arsenal at home and City away, which isn't quite as good as Haaland's. If there is another blank in future, that creates another double for Spurs. If that goes in a big double game week where you want to use your free hit, maybe even your bench boost or your wild card, then that cancels out the triple captain chip. As for Salah, he's the most likely candidate to compete. He's got a 40% chance of a double game week in game week 21, and funnily enough that would be against Chelsea at home and Chelsea away. He has got another double that needs rescheduling, that would be against Wolves at home, and we're far more likely to triple captain him in that fixture. Ben Krellin's currently predicting that that fixture will be paired with United at home in game week 26. The problem is the fixtures are more congested with the Champions League being back on. You might have noticed that a lot of those things that I've mentioned are potential drawbacks that are not set in stone yet. There is a strong case to triple captain him this game week, but there's also a strong case to not triple captain him. I don't think there's a right or wrong play. In hindsight, we'll find out which result is better, but neither decision is wrong. With all the information that I've just discussed, I've actually just gone ahead and activated the triple captain chip. Keep an eye out for my tweets on Twitter. Things might change between now and the deadline, including my transfers as well. I hope I helped you with your decision making. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of these videos.